I am being watched. Welcome everyone to Male Fuzz TV. I am Peter, and today I'm going to be talking about Person of Interest, Season 2, Episode 8. It's called Till Death. So spoilers for the episode as always. This was a fun episode, I thought. It's a light-hearted episode. It's an episode that has really consistent themes throughout. It's all about relationships and being with the right person and trying again and all that stuff. But the central gimmick of it is that there's two numbers, not just one, and it's this married couple who are very wealthy. They own a publishing company, and then partway through the episode, it becomes clear that the husband hired an assassin to take out the wife. But that still doesn't explain why there's two numbers, because the machine doesn't normally give a number for both the perpetrator and the victim. It usually does one or the other. The reason why there's two numbers is because then the little twist that comes after that is that the wife has also hired a hitman to kill the husband. So it's this married couple that have fallen out of love and are trying to kill each other. And that plays into the themes of the episodes. And there's so much relationship stuff in this episode. Reese is the only character, I think, that doesn't have his love life really addressed. I mean, Carter asks him about trying again at one point, but everyone else has something going on in this episode. We have the backstory of seeing Finch's relationship develop with the redhead, whose name I can't... Grace, that's her name. So we get that in the flashback in 2006. We get the surprise that Fusco, who is acting suspicious because he's over like accepting phone calls and he's not telling anyone about it. It turns out he was actually going on a date. I don't know if it was a blind date necessarily, but certainly he was set up by a friend. So that's actually where he ends up being. And then also, Carter is... Well, she's not flirting, but there's another detective flirting with her when she asks for help, which, by the way, is Sterling K. Brown out of nowhere just showing up. In fact, the husband of the married couple as well, I know from Lost, and I think people also know him from other stuff. What's his name? Mark Pellegrino. Yeah, I know him from Lost, but I think he's been in a bunch of stuff. Oh, he was in Mulholland Drive, that's right. He was obviously so much younger in that I didn't even think of that. But yeah, he's been in a bunch of stuff. Oh, he's in Supernatural, yeah, I think I knew that. So, yeah, a few faces in this one. The show continues to be a who's who of a certain time period. So, yeah, it's all relationship stuff. It's all about exploring why a relationship breaks down, why it's worth trying again, and, you know, all that. Even in the flashbacks when Finch talks to Ingram, and Ingram kind of realizes that he's seeing someone, he brings up his wife, and that it was really nasty seeing her at a wedding or something where this was after the divorce, and it's the first time he's seen her since then, and it was really awkward, and he tried to talk to her, and it felt really bad, because it's not even that she hated him, it's more that she was indifferent to him. And he says that's worse. And he raises this concern that really, I think, gets to Finch, is this idea that he doesn't even remember all the lies that he's told her, and it seems like in part, obviously we know he was sleeping around as well, but in part it's because of the work that he does, and Finch's whole character is about being secretive. He even has it structured in a way that no one but Ingram knows who he is in terms of what he does with the machine and all of the secret work he does. And I think it sort of dawns him in that moment in the flashback that either he has to let her into his life properly and tell her who he is and what he does, or it'll never be real. You know, eventually it will drive her away if he doesn't. And I was curious as to where that was going to go, because obviously we know that he did eventually end up lying about dying because she thinks he's dead in present day, 2012 that is. But did he tell her a lot more than maybe we would have thought he did? And I wasn't sure where the flashbacks were going. He gives her this scavenger hunt. We see them sort of flirting on one of their earlier dates. There's a neat little bit where she talks about being in Italy for a year and loving the paintings there. That comes back up later. But he talks about looking at Italy via viewfinder when he was young, and then when he finally got to see it, it was amazing. And he was clearly, you know, he wasn't really talking about Italy, he was talking about her, because he knew about her for a couple of years, because the machine pointed her out and imagined being with her, and then eventually did get to. So when he says, "Yo, when I got there, it was actually everything I hoped for. It was amazing." Like, he's really talking about her. So, very, very sweet, but it does feed into this idea later on that their entire meeting is based on kind of it's a lie. I mean, it's not necessarily a terrible lie or anything. He's not killed anyone or something, but it definitely does feel like there's how he found her is something that has a story to it that she doesn't know, and that leads into all of the other things that he's not telling her. And the scavenger hunt, I thought might be leading to him telling her something about what he does and being honest with her. And I wasn't wrong for thinking that, because he clearly was going to. Like, he was sort of struggling with it. She, when they're walking away at the end after he's shown her this painting she loved from Italy, he's clearly bought it and brought it to this gallery just for her. But he doesn't tell her that, of course. He says, a mysterious anonymous donor did this. Is him. But she says he's got this look on his face, and he's like, yeah, I need to tell you something about, what I do and who I am. And she's the one that actually steps in and says, you know what, like, yeah, at some point you probably do, but tell me when you're ready, right? I'm accepting there's something you're not telling me, but you can tell me when you're ready. But until then, let's just discover this path together. She kind of lets him off the hook in a way. And it does make me genuinely wonder if he ever gets further with telling her stuff. Like, does he ever give her more insight into who he is and what he actually does and what he built? I think part of the sadness of the story might be that he never got to, that maybe the time came to pull away from her because of the life he was going into before he really get a chance to open himself up that much. Or maybe we'll see that he did. Maybe he was honest about a lot of things outside, of course, the eventual faking of the death, which is a pretty big lie, admittedly, but we know why he's done that. That was pretty clear. So, flashback stories was interesting here. Obviously, it was more sweet than the usual stuff that I love about the flashbacks, which is, the more sort of, all these little milestones in the machine, and learn about how the machine actually works, and how it shows seemingly empathy and caring for Finch, and these decisions that are being made. There's not really any of that in this episode, because it's all about Finch meeting Grace and sort of starting that relationship. But it was all very nice, and like I said, it was a solid episode as far as making sure all the plot lines and character themes all fit together, because everything synced up here. So that was your hopeful, bittersweet because it's a memory, but hopeful kind of relationship. Very, very sweet and innocent, all things considered. And then, there's not too much to say about the other ones for the detectives. I think, Carter's a little bit awkward whenever... I just want to call him Sterling K. Brown. What was his character? Beecher. Detective Beecher. He just kind of flirts a little bit, tries to ask her out. At the end of the episode, she agrees, and, maybe the events of the episode have led her to that point. Maybe even more importantly, seeing that Fusco's even trying to have a personal life as maybe the inspiration. More than anything. Or maybe it's the fact that the married couple who were trying to kill each other even made up and fell back in love by the end of the episode. Maybe that gave her a bit of hope. I don't know, but so she agrees to go on the date. I have no idea if we're going to see more of Beecher, if we're going to actually see a relationship form. I did not know he was in this show. It makes me think that if he is in it again, it'll be a few guest appearances at most, because I feel like I'd know if he was a big recurring thing. But hey, the Fusco stuff is pretty fun though, and also is sweet in its own right. I think it's because we've had reason to believe before that Fusco might be doing something bad, or he's fallen in with a bad crowd again of corrupt cops. There is a genuine relief when it's actually this really innocent reason that he's been keeping quiet. He's just a little embarrassed or nervous and doesn't want to bring everyone in the fact that he's trying to date someone again. And he's feeling kind of awkward at the fancy dinner, but then when she reveals, this is stupid, can I come with you on your stakeout? We can get some falafel. And Fusco, if you look at him, he's a man that enjoys, tasty but cheap street food. Like, that's the sort of man that he is. And I think they bond a lot more after that point, which is kind of nice. It's reaffirming for him, and it's nice to see, because she is clearly... she's appreciating him for who he actually is, as opposed to the Like, he was putting on almost a show by taking her to this fancier restaurant, and he was out of his element, but it turns out when he actually let her get a glimpse of who he actually is, she was far more into that. And that ends in a nice little kiss at the end of the episode too. My favourite part of all this, though, was absolutely when she shows up and talks to Fusco after they've done a little bit of action, and Carter and Reese are standing there like, wait, he brought a date? He brought a date to the stakeout. Their awkwardness in that moment was delightful. I very, very much enjoyed that. I loved it dearly. I also this isn't really tied into the relationship stuff in the episode. It's just a little continuation of the Reese trying to figure out more things about Finch. That's been a really nice through line since the start of the show. But I think what I appreciated about the little example we got in this one is how the characters react to it. Because Finch, over the phone, mentions something about baseball, and Reese is surprised that he knows anything about baseball. He's like, oh, I didn't take you for a baseball fan. And he asks if he likes a certain team, and he's like, no, not really. He's like, okay, what about this team? And he's like, and there's a moment where Finch gets this big grin in his face because he's realized what Reese is trying to do, and says, these teams are all fine, but none of them are going to give you a hint as to where I grew up. And it's just, it almost felt like playful here, as opposed to, oh, he's doing something behind his back or whatever. Like, he's doing that thing that a friend does when they're trying to get away with something, and the second he's caught, Finch isn't mad that he's caught him doing it. He smiles because he's like, oh, nice try. Nice try, but you're not getting me on that. It just kind of shows how their friendships evolved a little bit in these little moments, which I always appreciate. So I've kind of talked about everything outside of the main plot at this point. Perhaps in many ways because it was the most exciting stuff of the episode, but that's not to play down how much fun the main story was. The realization that these two are trying to kill each other, and they're just these arguing, unlikable rich people for the majority of the episode. There's kind of this like attitude that Reese and Finch have once they realize that they're trying to kill each other, where even Finch is like, do we even bother trying to save them? Because they're neither of them are innocent. They're both bad guys. They're both guilty of this. Like, should we not be saving innocent people and just leaving them to their own devices? And Reese says, well, do we have another number? And he's like, well, no, we don't. So I guess we're dealing with this. Although Reese does bring up a valid point a little bit later, is that it's entirely possible that innocent people will be caught in the crossfire as these hitmen are coming after both of the married couple. I mean, thus far in the episode, one was a sniper and the first one was a car bomber, which is actually quite fun because Reese he pulls the bomb out from under the car, but it's still got the phone attached to it. It can still blow up at any time. So he has to quickly try and cut the wiring or whatever. And it's actually a good little moment because Finch sounds genuinely concerned and he just says, get away from it right now. But of course, I'm watching where Reese is. I'm like, but where does he put it, Finch? Like, he's in a busy street in New York. Like, he could throw it down the alleyway, I suppose, and that would be the best place for it to go off. That would maybe be the least chance of hurting someone. But there's not a lot of options right here. I mean, I didn't know how big the explosion was going to be. Reese may have a better idea. He knows how much plastic explosives were there, and he'd have some experience with that. He knows how to disarm it. But the concern that Finch had for him and telling him to get away from it right now was kind of sweet, and as was Reese assuring him that it was still there. And likewise, later on in the episode, Carter's concern when it looks like Fusco's been shot, and I was surprised by that because they referenced him getting shot in the ass like a scene or two before, which did double duty here, actually. I liked this. That was good for two reasons. One, it lulled me into a sense of, yeah, they're not going to do it in Bad to Fusco too soon because it's not been that long since that, and he's just reminded us of it. But it actually enhanced the fact that he did get hurt a couple of scenes later when he got shot a couple times. But it also justifies why he was okay, because he reminds us that he got shot helping Reese before, and then when he gets up and he's fine and he says, oh, I know better than to not bring my vest when I'm working with the man in the suit, it's like, yeah, he's got a point. Of course he would. He's been shot already working with Reese. So it actually helps justify why he was wearing. I mean, it wouldn't be that far-fetched for him to be wearing his vest anyway, because, you know, he's doing these types of missions, he's a cop, like, there's a lot of reasons why he would be, but the writing set it up in a way where it said, no, he is directly being in hospital for a gunshot wound when helping Reese before. It completely sets up that he would be wearing his vest now. So that was a nice setup and payoff that was kind of sly. I appreciate that. Yeah, the actual married couple, eventually Reese is like, okay, let's just kidnap these two. So he just puts a bag over the guy's head and knocks him out, puts him in the back of the car. Carter's not feeling very comfortable with the kidnapping part of the plan. And then they do the same with the wife after Fusco saves her from a gunman. And they put her in the same car, and then they basically have them tied up next to each other and force them to talk. Eventually, Finch even brings in like a dinner and like some wine and a photograph of when they were happy. And they're sort of bickering. The fun part of this, of course, is that they both act shocked when they find out the other one hired an assassin to kill them. And it's like neither of them can pretend to be shocked. You both did it to each other. But you still have like the husband like, oh, I can't believe you. You're so selfish. The hypocrisy is strong, and it's very entertaining, I will say that. So, basically, they do end up sort of communicating. It comes out through the dialogue that they lost a baby together. She had a miscarriage, seemingly. And they kind of bond, and just enough that they're willing to tell Reese, like, anything they know about the hitmen, and they're willing to work to try and stop them. And then it's when they're trapped in a closet again later, in like a wine closet, that they really open up. I will say, look, there's a little bit of the dialogue that does feel a little bit rushed and forced, just to get them to the dramatic point that we need. But I do think it does mostly a pretty good job of like giving them a key bit of trauma in their backstory that split them apart, that made them misunderstand each other, and then they've been so cold and bitter in this relationship for such a long time that they got to this point where they were willing to kill each other for financial reasons. Not so much for insurance, but like they have different opinions about whether or not to sell their company, and the husband wants to sell and get a payday, the wife doesn't. But they end up bonding, they end up wanting to try again. So we get the hilarious visuals of them like kissing while they're both handcuffed and saying they're going to help each other. And we even find out after the fact that they're evoking their spousal privilege and refusing to testify on each other, which will probably help, along with the expensive lawyers, of making sure they don't actually get that much punishment. And luckily, no innocent people were killed. Fusco did take some hits to a bulletproof vest, though, so I think there's an argument that they put the life of a cop in danger. You know, I'm not. Obviously, it's still illegal to hire a hitman, even if they don't succeed. Obviously, I know that, but you know, arguably, one might say that they cancel each other. Still illegal, though. They should still be punished. Like, I'm not saying they shouldn't be, but still. No, this was a perfect episode for Reese just to be that dry asshole that he likes to be. I mean, he's dry with all the characters. You know, even Fusco is like, hey, do I not get some privacy? I took a bullet for you. And he's like, nope. But, like, his dry attitude towards these two rich assholes who want to kill each other just made for just a fun time. It's the perfect thing for him to bounce off of. I mean, he bounces off Finch a lot, cracking little jokes about being filthy rich. Not because he's jealous or anything like that, but he'll make little dry jokes about, you know, I think there was one recently about buying an expensive car for the ruse that they were doing. As far as anything else goes, I will say at the start of the episode, I did think there was going to be more of they set up this idea that they've got this like card scanner that will then copy the data on the card, the key card, onto a blank card that they've got so you can get into the building that the couple work in. And Reese says, oh, like, so how do I get a valid card? And Finch is like, well, that's up to you, Mr. Reese. I thought they said all that because they were setting up, like, it was going to be like a scene where he has to like steal one, but instead he just sort of like aims the scanner at a guard's card as he's walking past them, and it's such a quick nothing thing. I'm not sure why they bothered. Like, They already have to set up the idea that Finch set up a meeting and that Reese works for Finch's character and that he's there for that reason. I feel like you could have just done that and that'd have been fine. The whole having to get the keycard thing felt like it never really came up in any meaningful way. So I don't know, maybe there was another scene that it was relevant they had a valid card later that they cut out, or maybe I missed them using it again. But even if they did later on, it was such a quick moment because I definitely didn't notice anything meaningful with using the card. But hey, yeah, no, fun episode. Like all the relationship stuff is entertaining to watch. Particularly Fusco and his date were a fun time. The Finch stuff was sweet, and the main case was mostly funny. It was mostly a comedy episode in a lot of ways. So very nice. We'll find out what's happening next time on Person of Interest next week. But thank you for joining me. You can, of course, hit the like button. It helps out a bunch if you do. More people find the show and the channel if you do. And of course, you can support everything over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV and get some bonuses for your trouble. For example, I review Columbo once a month, and that's exclusive to patrons and YouTube memberships. Plus, there's bonuses for all the movie podcasts. If you want to hear me and someone else talk about science fiction movies, for example, you can go check out the Atomic Cinema Experiment over on MailFuzz Movies. But that is me, so thank you once again for watching or listening. I always appreciate it. Keep watching TV. Have you got any vanilla?